Hi everyone, it's Lisa Ross, though you may know me better as Paper Daisy Creations, and I am so excited to share this stitch pattern with you. I called this stitch pattern Constellation Lace to go along with my cosmic theme in the Cosmic Connections MCAL. But what it really is a series of cables and lace that come together to form this really out of this world lace pattern. Now, I have quite a few things to show you in this video, and I've linked each of the chapters below. So if you're just looking to work one particular stitch, you can click on the link for the chapter below to go directly to that stitch and replay it as many times as you need to when learning something new. Now, this is my original swatch that I created. Anytime I'm trying out a new stitch pattern for a design, I always create a little mini swatch version just to see if I like it or not. And it's a good thing I do that because there are a lot of swatches that did not get used in this design for one reason or another. But this one I fell in love with, and it became part of the pattern. All right, now this one is shown in fingering weight, but for the purposes of this video, I actually have a worsted weight yarn. And so the stitches for this example are going to look a lot bigger than they would in your design if you're using fingering weight yarn. So again, my sample for this video is showing you how to work these stitches using a worsted weight yarn. The fingering weight yarn becomes much more drapey, light, airy, beautiful. I like it both ways, but this one is fingering weight and this one that I'm showing you now is on worsted. All right, let's get started. Now, you're going to want to follow your pattern to work the edge stitches as they are written in your design. But I'm going to go ahead and skip on to the right twist. So come up to the right twist in your pattern and I will show you how to work that. A right twist is going to be when we take this second stitch on the needle and move it over the first stitch. And what it does is it creates this right leaning twist in our stitches. It's not a decrease. We start with 2 stitches and we end with 2 stitches, but the order of the stitches is going to be changed. Now, I can do this working a cable needle by holding this first stitch right here to the back of my knitting, but there's a shortcut method that I like to use, and I'm going to show you how to do that. If you're doing a design with a lot of cable twists, it saves so much time and energy, and you don't need a cable needle at all. You also don't have to worry about stitches being lost or dropped. All right, so to make the right twist in the shortcut way, I'm going to take these first 2 stitches and I'm going to knit them together. But I'm not going to take the stitch off of the needles. They'll stay on the needles, and then I'll work that first stitch one additional time. So to begin, go into the next 2 stitches, knit those 2 together, and leave it on your left needle. And sometimes I like to kind of pull this stitch a little bit long right here, just to give me a little bit more room to do my next stitch. All right, so now I've got that knit 2 together done, and these stitches are still on my left needle. Now I go into the first stitch on its own, and I knit that stitch, then take both stitches off the needle. And you can see I've created a right twist in which that second stitch crosses over the first one. Let me show you that one more time. I'm going to take it out, put those back on my needle, and now work a knit 2 together, leaving the stitches on the needle, go into the first stitch on its own, knit that stitch, and take it off your needle. And there's your right twist. All right, the next set of stitches that I'm going to work is going to be a yarn over, central double decrease, yarn over. It's 3 stitches that I'm going to turn into 3 different stitches. So I'm going to begin by doing my yarn over, and now I'm working a central double decrease. In a central double decrease, we're going to be using these next 3 stitches that are on the needle. I'm going to go into the second stitch on the needle and the first stitch. I'm going to go into these two together knitwise as if I'm doing a knit two together, but do not knit them. Take them off the needle. So I slipped those two stitches knitwise off of the needle, and now I'm going to knit one, and then those two stitches that were slipped, we're going to pass them over the stitch that we knit. So I like to go into them both together. I can just stick my needle in purlwise and pull those over the stitch that I knit. And there is my central double decrease. Now, sometimes with working that, your yarn over might get lost, so just make sure your yarn over is there. If it's not, if your stitches look like this, going straight from your right twist to your central double decrease, it's actually a really quick mistake to fix. Just stick that new stitch from your central double decrease back onto the left needle and scoop up to create your yarn over. And there's my yarn over central double decrease, and I'll work one more yarn over to finish that set of stitches. Let me show you the central double decrease one more time. I'm going to take those out and make sure if you do this that you reorient your stitches correctly. Anytime you're putting a stitch back on your needles, you need the right leg to be in the front of your needle, and you don't want those stitches to be twisted. So if you see a twist like this in your stitches, that's wrong. We're just going to untwist it and put it on correctly so that that right leg is loose and not twisted on each one of those three stitches. All right, I have to work my yarn over and now my central double decrease. So these two stitches go in as if you're working a knit two together. Slip them off the left needle, knit one, and then pass those two slipped stitches over the first. You can pass them over one at a time. I like to pass them over together. Then I yarn over to complete that sequence, and I'm ready to work my left twist. All right, here comes the left twist. There are two different shortcut ways I like to use to make the left twist. A left twist is when I'm going to be taking this first stitch and it's going to be crossing over the second stitch to create a left leaning cable that goes in front of this other stitch. Again, it's not a decrease, it's just a reorientation of the way that I'm working my stitches. Now, this is the way that I've written in the pattern. And again, refer to the technical notes on page 2 of your pattern if you'd like to see this in written form or need a quick reference. I'm going to go into the back of this second stitch on the needle. So ignore the first stitch for the moment. Go into the back loop of the second stitch, knit it, and then leave it on your needles. And did you see I kind of pulled it long? I don't want a really tight stitch. I can pull that longer because I'm going to come around to the front and I'm going to knit just the first stitch. And then I take it off of my needles and I've created a left twist in which this stitch crosses over the other one, creating a left leaning line. So let me undo that and show you one more time. Again, if you're undoing it, be sure you're reorienting your stitches correctly. All right, so to do my left twist, I'm going to be working into this second stitch and then working into the first stitch. So go into the back of that first stitch, knit it through the back loop, pull your needle to the front so that you can go into the first stitch, knit that first stitch, and then take it off the needle. And that's my left twist. All right, there is another way to do it. So that one is my favorite because it's the most efficient. But there is another method that I use sometimes, which matches the right twist slightly better than this method that I've just shown you. It takes an extra step to work, which is why I like it a little bit less, but it's still an excellent way to shortcut your left twists. All right, so here's how you'd work the alternative method. So I'm going to take both of these first 2 stitches and I'm going to slip them off one at a time knitwise. So slip each stitch off, those first 2 stitches, knitwise. Then put them purlwise back onto the left needle. And what that did was it changed the orientation of those stitches. So now the left leg is in the front instead of the right leg. Now I'm going to knit into the second stitch only through the back loop and leave it on the needles. Then I'm going to knit through both stitches through the back loop, 2 together through the back loop, and then I'll take both stitches off the needle. And that is an alternative way of making the left twist, which more closely mirrors the right twist. It's just a different way to do it. You can see that in doing that, I accidentally lost my yarn over, which again is a quick fix. I'm just going to slip these stitches back and scoop up that in-between yarn, and there's my yarn over. Then I can just put those stitches back. So you need to make sure you've got your yarn over, your central double decrease stitch, yarn over, and then your left twist. All right, let me show you that alternative method one more time. Okay, so to begin with, I'm going to take each of these first 2 stitches off one at a time knitwise, put them back onto your left needle purlwise. Your left legs are now in the front. I'm going to knit into the back loop of the left stitch. And then I'm going to knit into the back loop of both stitches. Then I take it off of my needle, and there's my new left twist. I'm going to finish up this row and work back to the right side, and then I'm going to show you the most exciting stitch here, which is a 1-1-1 cable. All right, I finished up those rows, and now I'm ready to work a 1-1-1 left cross. And what that's going to do is take the next 3 stitches, and it's going to reorient those stitches. I will say that this is the trickiest stitch within this stitch pattern, and if you want to omit it and work those stitches as a K3, you can absolutely do that. My whole goal is not to frustrate you, but maybe to teach you something new. So give it a try, but if you don't like it, you don't have to cross your stitches. You just won't have these crossed stitches right here in your stitch pattern, but making your own design the way that you want to knit it is absolutely valid. All right, now I have 2 cable needles because the way that I learned this stitch pattern was by taking a stitch and putting it on one cable needle and holding it to the front, and a second cable needle and holding it to the back for that next stitch, and then working the 3rd stitch. I'm not even going to show you that method because my testers said no one's going to want to use that once you show them the other way. All right, I can also tell you if you don't have a cable needle and would like to use a toothpick or a double-pointed needle, or even a removable stitch marker. That is a valid option. I will actually show you how to do the stitch marker option just because I find it to be one of the easiest ways to do it. And let me show you why. All right, so to begin with, I'm going to take that first stitch, I'm going to put it onto a cable needle, and I'm going to hold it to the front of my knitting. Now I'm going to work my right twist. So going into these 2 stitches together, knit 2 together, leave them on the needle, and knit just the first stitch. So I'm working that same right twist we practiced on the previous row, and then I'm taking it off the needle. And now I have this stitch on the cable needle. Now, be sure it hasn't gotten twisted, and then you will knit one off the cable needle. And I like to take that left needle and just pull it like this so that those stitches stay on hold as I'm working this stitch off of my cable needle, like that. And that is my 1, 1, 1 left cross. Now, let me show you it again, and this time, instead of using a cable needle, I'm going to use a removable stitch marker. If you're using fingering weight yarn, sometimes you may not have a cable needle that is tiny enough, and sometimes those stitches want to just fall off the cable needle. So what I've found is that you can do this using a removable stitch marker, and here's how you do that. So I'm going to begin by taking that first stitch off of my needle, and normally it would be being held onto a cable needle. Instead, I'm going to take this removable stitch marker, and I'm going to put that stitch onto the removable stitch marker and slide it off the needle. You could lock the stitch marker, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to let it hang there just as if it is a cable needle. Now I'm going to work my right twist. I'm going to knit these two together, leaving the stitch on the needle, and then I'm going to knit just the first one and then take both stitches off the needle. So go into these two together, knit two together, leave it on the needle, knit one, just that first one, and then take both stitches off the needle. And now that stitch that was on hold, I'm going to take it, make sure it is not twisted. That is one problem, is that this stitch marker can twist around. Make sure that that right leg of the stitch goes onto the front of the needle and just take it off of my knitting. And then I knit that stitch. And there we go. I've worked my 1, 1, 1 left cross. I'm going to work my way across this row, working my yarn over, central double decrease. And let me show you what that looks like. You want to make sure that your yarn overs are lining up. You'll have 3 in a column. As you can see down here, there's 3 in a column and 3 in a column, separated by that clean line of central double decrease. And I'm going to work my 1, 1, 1 left cross one more time. This time I'm just going to use a toothpick and show you what that looks like. So go into that first stitch. Oh, trying hard not to split the yarns. Hold it on the toothpick. You'll kind of have to hold the toothpick in place, which is why I find that to be not the easiest way to do it, but you don't want it twisting around and you don't want that stitch falling off. Then you'll work your right twist. And then I'll work that final stitch off of my cable needle or off of my toothpick. And that's all there is to it. Now, if you do find this series of steps intimidating, it is totally fine to omit the 1, 1, 1 left cross and instead just knit those 3 stitches, and your stitch pattern will look a little bit different, but you will have these beautiful yarn overs and some of the other beautiful lines within the design. Now, one other thing that I want to talk about is markers, because if you're using markers in your knitting, there are rows where they're going to have to be adjusted. And the reason for this, I find it's easiest to look at the chart to see why that's happening. So when we're working repeats, usually you just see a straight box of red lines, but you'll see on this chart that sometimes these red lines zigzag. And each time when that's happening, we're going to have to adjust our markers. And the problem is that this right twist or this left twist, they're worked across a repeat. And so our repeat is going to shift for that round and shift back on the next round. Now, in the knit along chats are a lot of people who have different methods for doing this, and they're great at giving advice. They've always been so helpful in my previous knit alongs, but I'll show you how I do it. Now, first of all, if you can work this stitch pattern without using markers, it can be a little bit trickier to keep track of your stitches, but you won't have to worry about shifting your markers at all. So it's worth giving it a try. All right, I came to these stitches that I have to work a left twist, and there's a marker right between them. So what I'm going to do is take this first stitch off the needle purlwise, take my marker off, and put that stitch back on purlwise. So it's just as it was oriented before with the right leg in the front. Now I have to work a left twist. So I'm going to do my preferred method of a left twist. And now I'm going to put my marker back on. All right, I'll work my way over to the next marker. All right, and I come to the next marker and I'm going to do the exact same thing. So slip this stitch off purlwise, take off the marker, put that stitch back onto my needle, and then work my left twist. Then I'll return the marker to the needle. All right, let me finish up this row and show you what's going to happen on the back. Now on this particular row, I'm purling my way across the back, but there are some rows where it shifts where there may be other stitches. At this point, I'm going to remove my next stitch marker, work the next stitch, and then put my stitch marker back. And if I shift those on the back of my knitting, that should have me back on track for the next right side row. So when I come to the next stitch marker, I remove the stitch marker, I'm going to purl one stitch, and I'm going to put that marker back in place, ready for the next right side row. And there we go. My stitch markers are back in the place where they're supposed to be, ready for my right side row. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoy this design. You can find all of my patterns on Ravelry and PaperDaisyCreations.com. And I wish you all very happy knitting.